Welcome in everyone to the latest edition of the Nordic Football Podcast. You with Steve Wyss and Jonathan Fadugba. It's been a little bit of time, Jonathan. Hope you're doing really well. Lots of action going on this summer in the Allsvenskan, Eliteserien, and of course now we're right bang in the European qualifiers period. Exciting times.
Hi Steve, hi everyone. Good to be back with you on this show. Plenty to get into. Steve, I'm sorry to read about your recent family bereavement in terms of the cat, a famous star of the podcast, who I don't know if you wanted to have a few words about just before we get into it. But yeah, it's been a while actually since we had the last show. Been plenty of developments over this summer. There's a lot to get our teeth into. I was listening back to the last episode, and we were even talking about Sverre Nipan and where he's going to end up. So, yeah, of course, he's officially gone to Manchester City now. So there's plenty for us to get into. But first, I wanted to give you the floor and just, have a little tribute to you.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, it's a shame. He was just 8 years old. Was Kit Kat. He did make regular appearances on a lot of the shows I do on the podcasts I do. And most famously, of course, was in the 2020 pre-season Eliteserien pod, where I think it was listed in the itinerary as Meatman Soccer Cat Attack, where he was perching just over my shoulder. He slipped and sort of got heavily involved. And it was exactly the same moment we were previewing Bodo Glimt, who at that stage were nothing more than a mid-table prediction for everyone. So did he foresee the rise of Bodo Glimt? So that's his most famous moment. But he would often obviously sit beside me on the cushion here while I'm doing the episode. So my other cat is going to have to take his place now. Now he's not here, she's less afraid of the area. So yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think definitely for regular listeners, you might have always heard in the background cat noises, and definitely a Glimt fan. I think every time we spoke about Glimt, seemed to pop up and jump on your shoulder or be on the screen moving around. So yeah, wish you all the best with that, obviously, and not a great time in that sense. But plenty to look forward to, obviously, over the past few weeks and months. The seasons are really we're getting into crunch time now for both leagues. We're going to start with Europe. As we speak, Malmo are playing in a massive local derby, I would call it. I mean, it's closer to them than most of their league games. So they're currently in European action, Steve, against FC Copenhagen, Champions League qualifier. I know that you've got one eye on this and you're very keen on the European ties. So maybe we should start with just giving a recap of, Steve, of where we are. Obviously, which teams have been knocked out recently and what the ties are, because there are some seriously juicy fixtures, aren't there?
Yeah, I'm currently watching this game right now. Malmo nearly took the lead, actually, with Tahar Ali. The goalkeeping mistake from FC Copenhagen. It's an interesting tie. Like you said, I think it is actually the closest game Malmo have of the whole season. It's a new record in the Champions League, the closest ever matchup between two sides, 23 kilometres. I think it's the third closest team for Copenhagen as well. So, listen, a big clash, obviously. And I tell you what, the winner of the tie has got a great chance to go into the group stages. They got Basel is facing the winner, the Swiss champions. Now, Basel used to be quite a big name, but only just recently won the title again for the first time in a while. Very winnable tie. So there's plenty at stake in this match. Loads of European qualifiers going on. Europa League, Conference League. In terms of the Champions League, Bodo Glimt now know who they will face in the final qualifying round to make the group stage, and it will be Sturm Graz, the Austrian champions. Lots of debate about this one, whether it's a good draw or a bad draw or sort of a neutral draw, and I've thought long and hard about it, and I think it's just at the stage now where there's no easy draw. When you've never made the Champions League group stage, I think the pressure's on, isn't it? I personally think, would you rather have a trip to Karabakh out in Azerbaijan, or face the Austrian champions, who are not RB Salzburg? So that's going to be a really sort of nervous tie, I think, for Bodo Glimt. We know they've been waiting forever to try and get into the group stages. I personally don't think you can argue too much with it. Sturm Graz, they're not bad, but you would take that, I think, as opposed to some of the draws they've had in recent years. So all eyes on the Champions League, and it would be nice to get one of the teams from the region into the group stages, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, on the last show, we talked a little about Kjetil Knutsen, the legacy there. You said that he may be on the out at the end of this season, and how badly Glimt really want to get into that Champions League after all their European successes over the years, Europa League semi-finalists, the season just gone. Looking ahead to sort of Europa League and Conference League, Steve, there's so many Scandinavian ties, which is what really strikes me. Let me just read through some of the ties, and then obviously we'll get your opinions. And obviously you covered the last rounds, so you can maybe comment a little bit on those. I was really surprised by, for example, Bickel Haken's big result last week. But we've got Fredrikstad of Norway. What are they doing in the Europa League? An amazing run for them. They will play Midtjylland of Denmark this Thursday. Bickel Haken will play Brann. So that's Norway v Denmark. And then Sweden v Norway. That was an interesting one, which I'm really interested to talk about. Haken v Brann, Steve. Then if we look further down, the Conference League qualifiers, we've got more inter-Scandinavian action. Rosenborg against Hammarby, massive game that, a massive club, Rosenborg, and the successful Hammarby, who are having quite a good season, challenging for the title in Sweden. Another Norway v Sweden tie. And of course, Oikor will play Gyori, ETO. I think they are a team from Hungary. I don't know personally too much about them, but you may have some insights. And then, of course, Steve, the team who are challenging for the title, of course, in Norway, Viking against Başakşehir of Turkey. That's another interesting tie for teams in our leagues. And I believe that is about it in terms of what we've got. Brøndby are obviously playing Viking, but those are leagues that we don't really necessarily cover in too much detail. But what are your impressions of the teams so far in terms of the teams they've overcome? For example, Bickel Haken beating Anderlecht, and the ties coming up this week.
I think first of all you got to congratulate the teams in Sweden there, Hammarby and Häcken. For Häcken beat Anderlecht over 2 legs, and Hammarby beat Charleroi over 2 legs. And I think both would have been significant underdogs in those fixtures. So well done there. And it's generated now, and I mean, Rosenborg against Hammarby now is an interesting clash. Obviously, years ago, Rosenborg would have been the clear favourites to win. Right now, I think Hammarby probably are the favourites. I think they're the better team. Rosenborg are not bad, but it's a lot more even than it ever would have been back in the day. But unfortunately, I think both are on a hiding to nothing. Whoever wins that tie will have to face the Bundesliga side Mainz. So neither are going to get. You're not going to beat a Bundesliga side over 2 legs, are you? So still, you've got to be in it to win it, I suppose, haven't you? It'll be interesting to see how Hammarby and Rosenborg get on, but really unlucky draw there. The draw's not been kind long term. Fredrikstad and Midtjylland, the loser of their Europa League tie, then faces Crystal Palace in the Conference League. So basically, the Europa League knockout match becomes like the knockout match, doesn't it, for Europe? Because you're not going to beat. There's absolutely no way that Fredrikstad or Midtjylland are going to beat Crystal Palace over 2 legs. I like the way that Viking are going. If they can get past the Istanbul club Başakşehir, is that how you pronounce them? Then they would face Spartak Trnava or one of the Czech sides, Craiova. That's very winnable. I like Oikor's draw as well, actually. I've no idea who is it. Eto F. Dior?
Hungarian side. Oikor have done quite well in the last rounds, haven't they?
Surely they'll beat them. Winner faces Rapid Vienna or Dundee United. Rapid Vienna, of course, were semi-finalists last year. It's tough but winnable, especially if it was Dundee United. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then of course Häcken Brann is a Europa League clash. The winner of that will have the chance to progress the Europa League knockouts in the final round. The loser of it is going to face Braga or Cluj for a place in Conference League. At the moment, the only teams guaranteed a spot in one of the group stages is Bodø Glimt, obviously, and Malmo. Malmo are guaranteed at least Conference League. Bodø Glimt guaranteed at least Europa. So plenty at stake. Huge round coming up. And as we all know, getting through these rounds, it matters so much for coefficient. Look at Djurgården last year. Nothing special domestically with it, and they end up the semi-final of the Conference League. So, these qualifying games, and the shocks have happened and will keep happening, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I think for me, Hakan Brand is the one I've really got my eye on. I think that's a fantastic clash in Rosenborg-Hammarby. Well done to Oiko, of course, in the last round. They beat an Estonian side Pied 8-0 on aggregate. So fantastic win there. And Hakan, I have to say, a big shout out to them from the Swedish point of view, just because of the fact that, they're not having a great season. And they've been able to pull it off in Europe, relegating Anderlecht to the Conference League. I should note, obviously, Steve, you mentioned there about Crystal Palace, but of course, technically it is Nottingham Forest potentially right now. Well, it's Palace right now, but it could be Nottingham Forest, pending the appeal of the Palace to CAS about the whole multi-club ownership thing. So that could potentially change. But either way, yeah, Premier League outfit it will be, won't it? And you'd expect them to struggle, whoever it is, depending on the outcome of that result there. A lot of controversy going on with Palace's European tie. Steve, let's just briefly, I don't know if you have any predictions either way. The Malmo Copenhagen tie, how do you see that going? I know you've had a few thoughts about Danish football recently. And also, where are you leaning for all these other ties? Let's just get your views before we move on to domestic matters.
Well, I was quite confident in Malmo. I mean, from what I've seen so far, 32 minutes in, it's an even game at home, which is worrying. I don't really like the direction of I don't like what I've seen from the Danish team so far in Europe. In this at this stage, it might be they need a bit of warming up. They obviously haven't played many games yet domestically, but I thought Malmo would have a chance against FC Copenhagen. But sometimes Malmo do freeze on the big occasion a little bit. They're going to need, well, they can't lose the first leg because Parkin is a difficult place to go. It's a close tie. I think it will be a close tie. Whatever. I think the others are really close as well. Rosenborg-Hammarby, I think, is a toss-up. I would give Hammarby a slight edge at the moment. I think they're a slightly better team. I mean, Hack Brann, that's a real 50-50, isn't it? Because Brann are maybe better, but they've just sold Hegebo and Hecken seem to be performing at their best in Europe. So it's going to be a difficult one to call. The Conference League annoys me a bit because I've said it before. I think the teams from the top 5 coefficient shouldn't be in the hat because it's just so grossly unfair. The golfing class is so much bigger, the top 5 leagues, to anyone else, that if you draw against them in qualifying, it's a death sentence, isn't it? I mean, look at this. KR Klaksvik could end up playing Rayo Vallecano from La Liga. I mean, how could a Faroe East side possibly beat a La Liga side over 2 legs? But put them in the group stage at home in November, at home against them, they might nick something. You know where I'm coming from. So I really feel like the draw has not been kind to a lot of the Scandinavian clubs. Strasbourg as well, they're going to face Brøndby or Vikingur. Strasbourg look really strong. I think Strasbourg could win the competition. So, yeah, that's a little bugbear for me in the Conference League. But I suppose at least you...
Has that been changed at all, Steve, in terms of the ties and the makeup of the ties? Has that been tweaked by UEFA to allow more, lower ranked sides to play against each other from closer regions? Or is this a bit of a coincidence? That's what's happened with the teams clashing with local, sort of relatively local European partners?
I think in the earlier qualifying rounds, it is more regionalised. The final qualifying round, I don't think is. It's pure luck of the draw then. But who knows what UEFA play out with these sort of things. The draws are so complicated, aren't they? Let's say at least, even if you face one of these big teams, you're going to get 2 legs against them, aren't you? In August, it's better than nothing. Just to make an actual group stage is huge because of obviously for revenue, crowd numbers, attendances, prize money, coefficient, everything. So as Djurgården improved last year, it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I want to see as many teams from Scandinavia in the group stages as possible, and hopefully we can get there. And then if I'm going to give a prediction, I'll say, I'm going to go Hammarby to beat Rosenborg. I'm going to go Brann just to beat Häcken. I think out of those 2 ties, but it's going to be close. Last year, of course, Elfsborg did beat Molde, didn't they?
Absolutely, there has been a few ties like that in recent seasons. I think, Brann are looking in a lot better shape in the league than Häcken at the moment. Did mention on the last show I wasn't a massive fan of Häcken, and not much has changed really except for their European progress. Rosenborg-Hammarby is the one that really interests me. How do you think Rosenborg will cope with the loss of Nipan and others? On the last show, you were sort of talking about some disappointing results they've had. They've had a few disappointing results recently as well. Is your opinion on that game clear? Are you dead set on your opinion there?
Well, the thing is, where are Rosenborg now at the moment? They're probably about the fourth best team in Norway. I think probably most of their fans would maybe agree with that. They are on the rise, they're improving, but they've lost two big players in Nipan and Broholm. So that's a big blow. Hammarby at the moment are playing. They're one of the top three sides in Sweden, aren't they? So that's why I'd have to give Hammarby the edge. But Rosenborg do have a way more European pedigree. Whether it means anything or not, I don't know. But the Lerkendal Stadion can come alive, can't it, in European evenings? I always remember that tie against Ajax years ago. Adding Bedro, one of the biggest roars we've ever heard up there. So funny things can happen. That's why I would make Hammarby the favourites right now, though. I just think they're the better team.
There you go. There's some interesting analysis from Meatman Soccer. I think some of these games will be televised, but most of them look like they're not on UK television. Certainly not in the at the stage of the competition in the Europa League or Conference League. So I'm not sure if there'll be places to watch that if you're based in the UK. But thank you for that analysis, Steve. I think Fredrikstad as well. I think that's an interesting tie against Midtjylland. But yeah, we spoke on the last episode a little bit about the Danish state of the Danish league in terms of their attracting players from Allsvenskan. And let's just see how that dynamic plays out with the Malmo.
I don't see Fredrikstad. I mean, I just criticised Danish football there, but Fredrikstad have just lost the goalkeeper Fischer to Metz. They'll do well to. I mean, the thing is, Fredrikstad just a mid-table Eliteserien side. If they were one of the top 3 or 4, I would give them a chance. But Midtjylland, 1 point off the champions, was it Copenhagen last year? Although, look, they needed extra time to see off Hibs. If that's alarm bells for me. If you need extra time to see off any Scottish side other than Rangers or Celtic, that's alarm bells for me. So you never know, do you? But I just don't think Fredrikstad are that great a side. But we wish them well.
Yeah, and I think, all of the games ongoing, I do think Copenhagen will see off Malmo most likely. Not too convinced with this Malmo side. If I'm being honest, Glimt, Sturm Graz, hard to predict. I think, Oikos should come through. And Viking obviously have, could be 50-50, or maybe they could advance as well. So keep an eye on those. Some really, like I say, some really exciting ties there. And I think definitely we'll be covering them in the weeks to come in the next week or so. Steve, let's move on to Eliteserien. Now, on the last episode, we talked about how far behind Glimt were, obviously mitigated by the number of games in hand they've had. Well, they have certainly, I think one of the comments was, even if they win their games in hand, it might be too late for them. Well, they've definitely done a decent job of these games in hand, haven't they, Steve? Because as we look at the table now, you see with about 12 games remaining for most teams have caught up with each other. 13 in some cases and 14 in other cases, but it's starting to even out a little bit, the league, in terms of games in hand. Top 4, we've got Tromsø just hanging outside there in 4th place. They're on 32 points, 7 points off the top. They've only played 16 games. You've got Brann in 3rd place with 17 games played, 33 points. 2nd place, Steve, Buda Glimt have risen up the ranks, and now they are just 1 point behind the league leaders with 17 games played. They have 38 points. And in 39 points, they've held on, but they've played a game more, 18 games played, Viking. Really hotting up this title race, isn't it? What's been your opinion of Glimt? Just give us an overview of how they've done in recent weeks, and also Viking in terms of staying ahead of them and leading the chasing pack from such a lead that they had earlier in the season with the games in hand they accrued.
Well, Viking were in a great position, weren't they? But you cannot open the door one bit to proper champions, can you? And it started way back, the last fixture in June, actually, when Viking were 1-0 up away against Rosenborg. At that stage, a really poor Rosenborg 11. Great chance to beat them, 1-0 up, but they didn't even have a second half shot and end up drawing 1-1. And I said at the time, okay, 1-1 away at Rosenborg's not terrible in the face of it, but it was a brilliant chance to beat them. And then they go to Brann and lose 3-1. So, again, you cannot give these big, sides like Buda Glimt encouragement, can you? The crucial match was between the two teams, Viking 2, Buda Glimt 4. It was a pulsating clash. It really was. Do you know how sometimes the top of the table clashes, big matches that are hugely anticipated in whatever league, never live up to the billing. Well, this did. It was brilliant. They both had a right good go at each other. Bode Glimt did deserve it. That's how Bode Glimt, I think, wanted the game to be a shootout. They would back themselves to sort of beat those sides in a shootout, and it felt like a must-win game for them, and they got the win that they needed. Viking obviously did have a lot of games in hand. They've just beaten Bryn 3-1, and since then Bode Glimt have been faultless, winning 3 games in a row. 7-2 win against Vålerenga, bumping up the goal difference, which is at the moment, I think they've got is it 8 or 7 or 8 better in the goal difference stakes. They're 1 point behind with a game in hand. I'm not sure the game in hand's actually against. I've actually forgotten that one. But I mean, I think I'm a little bit surprised how, if you had said to me Viking would lose both to Brand with Bode Glimt, I would have been surprised. I would have thought they would get at least a point there against someone. So now the pressure's on, let's see what they've got. And a lot now depends, Jonathan, if Viking do qualify for Conference League. If they qualify for the Conference League, I can't see how they're going to rotate the squad between the matches. I famously said, didn't I, on the last pod, I didn't really think Viking would go far because the draw looked tough. Now it suddenly looks easier. So they may well make the Conference League groups now. We know Bode Glimt are in at least Champions League or Europa, and we know that they will drop points in between those matches. There's a history of it. They are much more vulnerable in the autumn and early winter than they are in the middle of the summer. So it's certainly all to play for still. I think, Tromsø and Brand fans are not going to like me for this. I think they're probably out of it, the title. Tromsø just dropped a few points of late. And I mean, you'd have to say Bode Glimt now are the favourites, but I'd say they will drop points in Europe. It's a question of will Viking drop points as well.
Well, it's not like Tromsø fans to not like your opinions. So you do like it upsetting their fans. So I think it's worth dwelling on that Viking Glimt game for just a second, actually, because it took place on 19th of July. So it was a few weeks back now, but that's got a very strong contender for game of the season. I mean, there was 4 goals in the opening 20 minutes. Every end after, I think, 30 seconds. 5 minutes, Christiansen, Kasterbordsho, then Trippic. But fantastic game, and played in front of a really packed crowd as well, really up for it, the Viking fans, and a real show of strength from Glimt to go away and win. They then followed that up with a 7-2 win over Vålerenga, a 1-0 win over Godset, and then a 3-1 win away to HamKam. So Bode Glimt's absolutely flying at this moment in time, looking really good. You said there, Steve, kind of Viking have recovered and kind of, they're looking okay still, keeping their lead. Do you think that, the transfers are going to impact this at all? Is there any sort of major ins or outs that you can see impacting this title race between those two sides? Just to sort of give you the results, listeners, obviously since Viking lost that game to Glimt, they've only played 1 league game, actually, winning 3-1 at Bryn, as you mentioned, but they've also played 2 European Conference League qualifiers. They beat Copper 7-0 and then 5-3 away. So they got goals in their team. Viking, absolutely. Copper, by the way, is a Slovenian outfit who have a very interesting crest. Looks a bit like a kind of, I don't know, like an Eastern European sort of Alston
I don't think they're much Copper.
It's like an Eastern European Alston Towers kind of badge. But transfers and how they're going to impact this title race, in and out. What's been the latest?
Well, Viking have certainly bolstered their squad. They've brought Ruben Alter in from Christiansen for nearly £1 million. And they've brought in Veton Berisha back from Molde as well as Christopher Haugen. So they've bolstered, that's for sure. In terms of Glimt, I think they signed someone from the Danish league, Jorgensen, I think he's called, 3 million. Don't know a lot about him. Patrick Berg, it keeps getting linked with moves away from the club. I think MLS is the latest destination potential. An MLS club was rumoured to have offered £10 million for him. Which Glimt, I think, accepted at the time. I don't know what the latest is with Patrick Berg. He was linked with Ajax, actually, for a long time this summer. And I think clubs are finally starting to realise how good he is again. It didn't work out, did it, in Lons for him? But unfortunately, that team at Lons, he went there with had 2 or 3 incredible midfielders who were very, very good. So I think he deserved another shot outside of Norway, and I could see it happening. Don't know when it will happen. So that could be quite a big transfer, but he did miss some games for injury recently, so they maybe show they can cope without him. But I don't think there'll be too many ins and outs for Glimt otherwise. It's going to be a close battle, I think, between the two. Viking are a good side. They've got a lot of goals in them. It's just they have a history, don't they, of being in this position before, and they kind of blow it a bit. I don't want to use that word, but they have, haven't they? Let's be honest. They've had opportunities to try and win this league in recent years, and it hasn't worked out for them in the autumn.
Yeah, and one final question on that, Steve. What's your opinion of an outgoing at Buda Glimt, Jeppe Kjær, who's gone to Mjällby? Big signing for Mjällby, of course, going for the title in Sweden. What intel, what information can you give to us about Jeppe Kjær, who's left Buda Glimt?
I think they've done well to get nearly $1 million for him. Is it €1,700,000? 700,000? Is it something like that? I mean, the problem is he didn't really get a chance at Glimt. He was always like making substitute appearances and stuff. But when you're in a side like that with so many superstars in his position, like Grombeck was there, wasn't he? And Jens Petter Hauge, players like Lax Surly, it's very hard to make an impact. Doesn't mean he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. He's quite technical. So he just needs a good run of games starting and see what he's made of. I think it's good business for Glimt. It might prove to be good business for Mjällby as well. We know they're good at identifying players. So it might be one of those transfers that actually works out quite well for both clubs.
Great stuff. One to watch, of course, and he should be featuring, given the amount they pay for him. Mjällby aren't big spenders, so of course I can't imagine him being riding the bench unless he doesn't adapt too well. Let's move on, Steve. We've got a massive game this weekend that you can talk about quickly in Norway.
Yeah, it's Tromsø against Bodø Glimt, and I talked about must-win games. If Tromsø want to stay in the title race, this is a must-win game for them. Not that we should judge them harshly if they lose it. No one expected them to be in the title race. They're a big price to win the game. I think 8-1 to win here in Aspmyra Stadium. It's a place they have tasted some success though in recent years. Not last season. They did win this fixture in 2023 and 2021. So they've got chances. Perhaps not in 2021. Sorry, 2023 was the win. They had 2 goals to 0. It was the only home defeat Bodø Glimt had that year. But right now, I think they're trending in opposite directions. Really, they could have done with playing Bodø Glimt while they're in the middle of the Champions League tie, but that's still 2 weeks away. So full focus on Tromsø for Glimt. But who knows what can happen in a derby game? There's 6 points between the two teams. Tromsø have a game in hand, so if they beat them and then win the game in hand, they'll be level. But it's more, I think, impactful now on that title battle with Viking. Really, Viking will be looking at this fixture and thinking, you know what, maybe Glimt could drop points there. I don't really see it because Tromsø have they lost 4-1 at Rosenborg and then they could only draw 0-0 home to Fredrikstad. Again, I kind of saw it coming. You cannot keep overachieving the metrics as much as they did. And there would, to only draw 0-0 against Fredrikstad, that's not good enough at the moment at home. If you want to win titles, if you want to be in medal positions. But I don't want to be too harsh on them because, like I said, no one expected it of them this year. But they are capable of giving Glimt some issues. It's not a slam dunk home win, but it probably will. If I had to give a prediction, I'd say Glimt to win by 1 goal margin is likely. It would probably be close.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about your prediction there, to be fair. Let's see what Tromsø can do. They're having a good season. Can they maybe upset their heated rivals? That will definitely be an interesting game this weekend in Eliteserien. We've also got, let's see what else we've got coming up. We've got Molde HamKam, Glimt Tromsø, as you've mentioned, on a Saturday. Brynn K from Oslo, Haugesund, Salzburg, Sandefjord, Viking. So some big games coming up there. And Steve, I wanted to just ask you as well, can you just tell me a little bit about K from Oslo 4, Rosenborg 1? And whilst you're on that subject, you've also sort of talked about Dino Islamovic, who Rosenborg fans will be loving right now. He did score in that game, but unfortunately it was a consolation goal because the YMCA, K from Oslo team, have absolutely battered them on this evidence.
Well, they're in form, K from Oslo. They won 4 games in a row. Some very impressive wins. They beat Brand 2-0 at home as well. 5-0 away at Kristiansund. I think simply a case of a side in magnificent form. who you do not want to be facing K from Oslo right now. They've got a system that's working great. Johan Nunes, the key man up front, was not fit for the first probably month and a half, and it's a massive difference when he's in the side at peak fitness. He can score, he can assist. They've got a lad, I think Hickson or Keke is going well. And Rosenborg, that was around. They're in Europe at the minute, and it's not easy, is it, to play on a Thursday and then play on a Sunday? So that's what I put it down to. Dino Islamovic's form is incredible. 13 goals in all competitions in his last 9 games. Don't know where he's got it from, but he is clearly very, very confident right now. It helps he's on penalty taking duty as well. I think there's been a few penalties in this. He scored 4 goals against Tromsø. But I mean, with Islamovic, it's kind of when he's in the mood, he's bloody hard to play against, isn't he? But he tends to have really hot periods and really cold periods, and at the minute he's hotter than, well, a furnace.
Hotter than a knife through butter. And well, Dino, the man named after the extinct animals, maybe you could say, he is definitely on fire. But yeah, that is an incredible goal. Sometimes players just have this streak, don't they? I remember Bård Finner went through a bit of a stage like that, didn't he, at Brann? And there's been others who kind of, they potter around a bit. Islamovic's always had ability. It's been in Sweden as well. But yeah, sounds like he's on absolutely red hot fire. Steve, it's fun to stay at the YMCA, but how much fun can this KFM team have between now and the end of the season? Because like you said, they're in red hot form. They're currently 8th in the table. They've got some games in hand. Can they go much higher?
Well, yeah, at the moment you wouldn't want to be betting against them anywhere because last year they were an absolute pain in the arse to face, weren't they? They're well structured, well organised, and now they're scoring goals as well. So they're one of the best away teams we've seen in Norway in the last 2 years. Now they're starting to sort the home form out.
What's it down to, Steve? Have they got a mercurial manager there? What is going on here? Because the rise of KFM, we haven't really dwelled on it that much. We should probably give them a bit more attention.
They've got a good manager. They're simply a case of they've got better players than people give them credit for. And when that happens, the results might look like a shock, but they can't really be a shock when you look at the 11 on paper. But they were kind of doing well this time last year, and they dropped off in the last 10 games. So what might happen is they might get to a position of safety, say, 33, 34 points, and then they might be the first team on the beach in this league, if you know what I mean. The Fulham of Eliteserien. So if history repeats himself, they probably won't go higher than top 6. But if they can, keep the crack on the whip there, I'd say right now you don't want to face them. Who's got them next? Bryn against K from Oslo. That's not going to be an easy game for Bryn, is it? So, I'm not sure who they've got any of the big teams coming up soon, but very fun. Yeah, we do need to talk about them in detail in another pod, that's for sure.
Yeah, we must do that, Steve. Are you a bit biased to the big clubs? I think sometimes you swerve some of these smaller clubs when we talk about these teams. Maybe some of the fans from the smaller teams are going to start calling you out on this big club bias, Steve. You're a bit like, could call you the Jamie Carragher of Norway. There's this big 6 bias that's going on here. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. Let us know your thoughts on X, Twitter, and at Nordic Football or on YouTube. We've even had some comments on Spotify. You can leave comments on Spotify now, Steve. So I am actually going to read one out right now before we move on with the show, whilst it's on my memory. We had a comment from the last episode via Spotify, Steve, the ceasefire agent scandal episode, and it was someone called the Danish Snufkin. Don't know if he will listen to this, but if he does, he said we obviously the discussion about Denmark to Sweden. The Denmark to Sweden pipeline isn't as strong as the other way around. Tichosnavoy Kor was at Midtjylland and Nordsjælland. Wissam Abu Ali, who had a great season at Sirius, was at Vendsyssel in Denmark. Selech was loaned out from Brøndby numerous times before he went to Sirius. And Brummer Poikina made use of Fredericia, who is Midtjylland's go-to loan-out club in Denmark. So it's always nice to have comments on that little debate we had about Danish second division to Allsvenskan pipeline based on the Niklas Rockjær transfer. So thank you for your comments there. Yeah, if you do feel like there's some big club bias by Meatman Soccer, then let us know. with your comments below.
Well, don't worry. I will spit out some thoughts on some other teams in future.
But speaking of smaller clubs, Steve, before we wrap up part one of the show with the Eliteserien focus, I mean, you could accuse them of being technically quote unquote smaller club at this moment in time because as we look down that league table, Steve, you got Mulder in 11th. And the other team that you've got on your agenda to talk about is unbelievably still winless. Has there ever been a team that's actually gone an entire season without winning a single match? Because as
it's
it
at the
stands,
time we need to start looking. Yeah.
we might need to start looking. 13 games to go. Haugesund's record is played 17, won 0, drawn 2, lost 15, goals scored 5. I mean, goals scored 5 and goals conceded 44, minus 39 goal difference, 2 points. They might already be nearly relegated. Steve, this is absolutely pathetic. Now, I know that you definitely can't be accused of talking too much about Haugesund over the years, so that there is definite big club bias there. But they are going to have to be talked to. Maybe they're trying to get your attention, Steve. Maybe this is a cry for help, because what on earth is that record? That is absolutely shambolic.
This might be the last chance we ever have to talk about Haugesund because they feel like the sort of team that if they go down, then they might not come back so quickly. Although the only thing I'll say, I think the lowest tally of points I can remember since even following Norway was maybe one of the Sandefjord teams and maybe one of the Arlesund teams. Arlesund in the COVID season didn't get many points at all, maybe 15 tops. And maybe a Sandefjord team back in the day was poor as well. But listen, Haugesund, look, they try to change their manager. It's not worked. 5 goals scored is unbelievable, isn't it? Like, how is that even possible? You would think even by just default and by luck, you would get at least double-digit goals by now. They must be massively underachieving their expected goals, I do believe. But it's over, isn't it? They are down. Yeah, we can pretty much say that now. They're just playing for pride, and they need to try and get a win from somewhere. It doesn't look like coming.
They look down. But Steve, what the hell's going on here? I mean, you can't score 5 goals in 17 games. Me and you could round up a bunch of friends and play an Eliteserien, and okay, we might not score more than 10 goals, but I'm pretty sure we could nab a few penalties and score 6 goals in 17 games. What on earth? What is going on?
You are genuinely disgraced, aren't you, by this?
I can't believe what I'm seeing here. 5 goals in 17 games for a professional outfit. What's gone on here? I mean, is it a kind of manager thing? This looks to me like a borderline gross negligence of downing of tools. This is like weapons grade downing of tools, Steve. This is like not just downing your tools, but shoveling them into the ground and burying them deep where no one can find them. Because the players, what's going on with the players? That is not. I mean, usually when you have a run like this, you sack a manager, right? Or you rejig the squad somehow. The transfer window's open. Has it been a case of like that they don't have the finances to replace players? Have they kept the same squad? Has the manager tried rotating things? Has the manager been sacked? Well, just give us a bit of an overview here, Steve, because this is monumental failure on a grand level.
I think for me, the reason I'm probably not as in shock as you is because I've seen it coming in the last 2 or 3 years, and I've seen it week by week how bad they've been. So this was always going to happen to Haugesund at some point. It just was the direction of the team were going. They did change the manager, possibly at the wrong time. It's not a great idea to bring a manager in when your next game's Bodø Glimt, is it? And I think when a new manager comes in, when a team's that bad, they've got to make immediate impact to have any chance. So they should have looked at the fixture list and maybe looked at an easier slot to come in at. But when you start with 2 4-0 defeats, it's not good. They got a point there against Kristiansund. I think the worrying results then are when you lose to K from Oslo, Vålerenga and HamKam back-to-back, combined 8-0 loss. They just can't score goals, can they? There's no threat. That's the biggest. Some of these poor teams.
But why? I mean, the players can't be that bad overnight. Come on.
They've missed a lot of chances. Like I said, I think they have massively underachieved their XG. But look, I said it pre-season. The squad is really poor. It just is. I looked at that squad. I didn't predict them bottom, did I? Because of Bryn. Because I always do that, like with the worst. make that mistake before too often. But I did have Haugesund in 15th doing that, and all year I've been really down on them in terms of how bad the actual team and squad is, and there's not much more I can say. When you're bad, you're bad. Everything about them is rotten to the core.
Rotten to the core, he says, and that's where we will leave it, because I mean, where do you go from here? That will do for part one. I think Mulder, yeah, congratulations. You've had a little bit of a recent upturn in form. Steve has mentioned that there. I'm too disgusted to really continue with this part of the show after what I've seen from Haugesund there. I mean, that is shambolic. Steve, you wanted to just briefly mention a major transfer from Brann, and also a goalkeeper that you've really sort of talked up a lot.
Yeah, Honor Hegebo, 5 million sale to West Brom from Brann. I think it's probably a good move for the player. Don't know how he's going to get on at championship level. Big loss for Brann, though, obviously, to lose the top scorer. And then Jonathan Fisher to Metz, just 3 million this. I think he's been a brilliant goalkeeper, the best in the league in the last year and a half. So I do think FC Metz have got a fantastic deal there, and a big loss for Fredrikstad, sadly. I'd be interested to follow his progress. I think he's the sort of keeper I could see going even higher than Metz. So now he's got a chance on the stage to prove it, really, hasn't he? Let's see how it goes with Jonathan Fisher. Best of luck to both of them, who make a move to bigger leagues, and we'll keep our eye.
Yeah, you are a big fan of Fisher. You've spoken about him lots of times. I think he even featured in one of our Y Scout blogs on your recommendation. So, yeah, good luck to him. In part two, we'll speak about Allsvenskan in brief, few things to touch on there, and we'll be back after this short break.
Welcome back to the Nordic Football Podcast with Steve Wyss and Jonathan Fadugba. Hope you're all enjoying the show so far. And we move to Allsvenskan matters. And I'm just looking at the league table now, and there's no stopping Mjällby. 18 matches played. Every team has played 18 games now. 13 wins for them, 4 draws, 1 defeat, 43 points. They've got a 4-point cushion on Hammarby. Elfsborg have got an 8-point cushion on them. And they've got a 10-point cushion on Malmo and AIK. So just 12 games left now for Mjällby. This big match coming up at the weekend against Malmo, Jonathan, could be pivotal in terms of the chances for both teams' title bids. Mjällby just keep going from strength to strength. 4 wins in a row.
Yep. They are flying, Steve. Where do you say welcome back, of course. As of now, Steve, they are currently looking at one of the best records in Allsvenskan history. If they continued at the same points per game ratio, Mjällby, we're looking at a historic season here. We're looking at potentially one of the greatest all-time campaigns in the Allsvenskan era. This is not a bit of a fluky side. We have mentioned this a few times, haven't we, Steve, about Leicester City and the parallels. I mean, even once BBC Sport pick it up, then you know big things are happening, because they've written an article about it recently. So for them to pay attention to Sweden is always, if it's not, because it's not due to some controversy or something, it's something big going on. Yeah, they've covered Mjällby. They have already they're well within reach of their club record points total. Which I think is about 50 points. So they're really having an unbelievable campaign. They've lost a few players. In fact, Killerich has gone to Zulte Waregem. So Belgium did eventually pluck one of their players, but it's looking like and obviously we talked about Rockjar on the last podcast, who I thought was a massive loss. But as of yet, I mean, they've only played a couple of games since his departure, but they've not struggled too much. Dispatched AIK, I thought, really, really well, 2-0, and of course in the most recent game beat Sirius 2-1. They've got some squad depth as well. Stavitsky came in and scored in that Sirius game. They didn't have a game this weekend just gone, Steve. There's a bit of a backlog of games. So they didn't play, but they've got a massive game this weekend, which, in my opinion, I think the next 2 games are basically huge. If they win the next 2 games, I think they've got a real genuine chance of winning the title. They've got Malmo away. Now, if you look at it historically, they've had quite a good record at Malmo in the last few years. Anders Torstensson always puts together a tactical plan for them and does quite well. But I think obviously going into it, Malmo, although they've got a European action, they've got enough time to maybe prepare. And Malmo need to win. And Malmo have been quite lucky, I think, in recent weeks, to be honest, Steve. I don't think they've played that well in the league. And they're still getting results, but they're just about clinging on to that title race. I don't know what your opinion is there in terms of is that a too big a gap? But they're not gone yet. They're not dead yet. But I think if they win this weekend, yeah, I think they will have killed off Malmo. And then the next one is Djurgården at home now. And Djurgården aren't really, I don't think, playing that well. But obviously they're a big club. And I think if Mjällby get consistently, if you start to beat Malmo away, Djurgården at home, you're a proper title rival, isn't it? You're a proper title contender. Like, you can be really taken seriously. So I think those are some big games. And then they've got Gais away, Gais are one of the form teams in the league right now. So they've actually got 3 really, really hard games coming up. And then their fixtures get a little bit easier. But I think these next 3 games will really tell us a lot about Mjällby. But I've said that many times this season already, and every time there's a hurdle, they overcome it. So yeah, this is a genuine, huge potential title upset we're looking at here, and a title win.
Yeah, I agree. I think the next 3 games are the ones. Malmo away, Djurgården at home, Gais away. They could easily lose all 3, but they could win all 3. After that, it gets very easy. Halmstad, Degerfors, Osters, Bromma-Poikina. Nice set of fixtures after that. So for me, if they can get through these next 3 games with some reasonable points on the board, I think it's very much theirs to lose. In terms of Malmo, I actually think they have just found some form, actually, at the right time. Not truly menacing form by any means. They don't. It's not the vintage Malmo, is it, of crucial years? But if they were to beat Mjällby, it would maybe get them back in the race a bit. I think they're probably playing for second, if I'm being honest with you. 10 points is a huge amount to overcome. And remember, Malmo definitely will be playing in Europe, whatever. At the bare minimum, they'll be getting 6 Conference League games. And again, I've said before, it's not easy. I know they've got a big squad. It's not easy playing Sunday, and then Thursday. So it's even still, it would be an incredible achievement for Mjällby. Effectively a village. The last episode you were saying you actually predicted them second. I think you say Hammarby were your favourites. I think. Where is this title going now? Hammarby and Elfsborg, are they contenders?
No, I think on the last podcast you predicted Hammarby to win it, and I said that I'm not. I still probably leaning towards Malmo, but I think you would. I was a bit more on the fence. You were a bit more sure that you said you think Hammarby the all-round best team.
Yeah, I said Hammarby first and Malmo second. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I said in the last show that I don't think Malmo are out of it. Having said that, I do now think Malmo have probably given themselves too much to do, but they need to win this weekend. If they beat Mjällby in this next game, then they still got a glimmer of a chance. But what's changed, in my opinion, from the last show with Malmo is I just don't think they're playing well enough. I think they're a flaky team, to be honest. I don't really rate them. They're getting results just maybe with bits of individual quality. I mean, Haksabanovic scored an absolute beauty in a recent game. I don't really think that they've really clicked. They've just lost Keith Tellin as well. That's been a massive sort of a shock announcement. He's leaving the club, and he had a big standing ovation in the recent days in front of the fans, and had his big farewell. Obviously, multiple title winner with Malmo. He's been a really huge striker for them. But yeah, my opinion on Malmo has changed. They were my preseason prediction. I was borderline changing it on the last show, but now I'm officially sort of, I think, if they win it now from here, I think it'd be almost a bit of a shame for Allsvenskan, really, because they just haven't really, I don't think, deserved it. I just don't think they're playing that well. They're not gelling. They don't look like a formidable side. So it would be a shame, I think, for Hammarby and Mjällby if they bottled it from here. Elfsborg, well, let's talk about that, Steve, because for me, that was one of the best moments I've seen in Allsvenskan since we've been doing this podcast, maybe ever in my time watching Swedish football. A week just gone. We didn't get a chance to do a show last week, obviously, because I know you were on holiday. But I did want to talk about this game. Elfsborg against IFK Göteborg. I have to say, yeah, pound for pound, probably the best game I've seen in Allsvenskan for a long, long time. it was a Monday evening game. It's obviously a bit of a local. It's not a local derby, but the Bordas region where Elfsborg are based is quite near Gothenburg. And for Elfsborg, it's a big game. They don't like IFK Göteborg at the end of the day. IFK have got their own sort of Gothenburg rivals like Gais and Häcken. But for Elfsborg, I think IFK is one of the big ones. They were getting absolutely destroyed in this match, Steve. They went 3-1 down. Rasmus Wikström again scored against his former club, which is funnily enough. He seems to love playing against IFK, former IFK academy player. Obviously let go and ended up at Elfsborg, and he scored 2 in the previous game, and then he scored another one here. But it looked like they were dead and buried until the second half, Steve. And this is a tale of fighting against the raging, dying of the light. An old man who is just announcing to the world that I'm not gone yet. And for me, it was the best moment of the season. Big Johan, old man Larsson, comes on. Thrown on. He's been ostracized from the club for the last sort of year, more or less, since Oscar Hilbert took the job. Don't forget, this is the club captain. He's a Elfsborg legend, this guy. He's been abroad and he's come back. And he just wasn't finding his feet at Elfsborg under Hildemark, but 3-1 down, Steve. Hail Mary, brings on the former captain, gives him his chance, and he's basically scored a hat-trick. Johan Larsson, the right back. A bit of a fantasy illusion for you. I know you. I've got bad memories of Larsson because he always used to cost me a fantasy because I never had him, and you always used to have him in your team. But yeah, he had a massive throwback. He rolled back the years in this game, Steve. The first goal was given as an own goal. He sort of, it was probably a cross, deflected in. He claimed it. He actually said after the game that he meant it, which, I mean, come on, if you see the goal, I think that's stretching it a little bit. It sneaked in at the near post from what would look like a cross. If he meant that, then he should be playing at Real Madrid. But the second two, Steve, he equalises for the club in the 90th minute, 93rd minute, Steve. And you think to yourself, okay, they've got a point. The whole crowd goes crazy. And 2 minutes later, 95th minute, Steve, a break comes in. The ball lands to him in the box on his right foot, and he absolutely bangs it, top bins, left into the goal on the volley to send the crowd absolutely wild. Now, I just want to talk about this moment for a second, Steve, because what I loved about it was his celebration. His celebrations gave me goosebumps. I must have watched that goal about 100 times in the next few days. His celebration, he just ran off and he was just shaking his arm, and it's like he's like pointing at himself. You know that celebration where it's like you thought I was dead type celebration. Like properly sort of rubbing it into the fans, and he milked it really hard. He was just like, "Don't forget who I am," and he almost couldn't believe it himself. He's like sort of in disbelief. He's shaking his head, but he also had that puffed out chest, like, "Yeah, don't forget who I am. Yeah, I'm still the big dog of this town," and. It was a wonderful moment, Steve. It really was. He was in tears after the game. He said, I had to fight for a year for my place. People, you think your career's over. He really gave a heartfelt interview after it, Steve. And it just reminded you, these professionals, when you get dropped from a team, it's a hard thing to deal with. You're a professional player. Like, you train every day. And he's the ultimate professional. He's the captain of the club. You train every day, Steve, and then match day, you're not in the team. It's like you almost lose a bit of purpose to your work in life. And even some of the other players came after and said, like, they're so happy for him just because he's been so professional. He's not complained. They've seen him like in the dark moments. They've seen him in the dressing room not being picked and like being really upset about it. He clearly wants to play, but he's not really kicked up a fuss. And yeah, the way he celebrated the goal, if you get a chance on YouTube, or we did post it on our social media, if you get a chance to watch the goal, and the celebration for me was goosebumps moment. It was just a wonderful moment. And seeing him crying as well after the match, Steve, just a brilliant moment for me. They won, they beat EFK, they finished the game 4-3, and also that has revived their season, Steve, because I think that 3-1 down to EFK, they were dead and buried. Their season was kind of just drifting into nothingness. But it's sort of revitalised their season. They've then gone this weekend to Häcken and won. So Elfsborg are on the up, and they have old man Larsson to think about it. He's not gone yet, and all you veterans out there, I just remind you, your time's still not done yet if you're dedicated.
Do you know what? I'm just looking at the fantasy now. He's priced at 5.8 million, and he started the season at 6, so he's not even dropped that much because no one expected him to be sort of in the team much. I called him done, didn't I, last year around about now, I think, wasn't it? Done in terms of this Elfsborg setup, it's quite clear that the new manager's approach didn't suit his style for his age as well. And usually what happens is a player like this would move on. Would either retire or move to somewhere else. He could do a very, very good job as a starting player, probably, in a team that sits deep. So for him to actually stay at the club is quite remarkable, isn't it, really, in terms of that? But he came on and he picked up 17 fantasy points in that game. I wish I'd got him and captained him for one more time. I really do. I could see him moving to an Allsvenskan club next year, maybe.
Well, but he's Elfsborg through and through. I'm not sure.
I know.
He probably has had offers. Like he is Elfsborg through and through. And one of the great things about it, Steve, was after the game he was doing an interview, and the players dragged him away from the interview, and they were like, "No, mate, you're not doing the interview." They pulled him away from the media, and they pushed him. They physically pushed him towards the fans. And were like, "Go and get your recognition," because it was like all the fans were going mad. Like the atmosphere was unbelievable. Like they don't like EFK. They're beating their local rivals. It was honestly like Roy of the Rovers stuff. It was an unbelievable moment. Like I say, for me, it's the best moment I've seen in Allsvenskan for years. Just in terms of a one person's. In fact, some people on Twitter did say they think it's the top 3 moments they've ever seen, reminiscent of the legend Kennedy at Hammarby when he scored a free kick from 30 yards and he was a fan favourite at Hammarby and he ran to the crowd and someone threw a pint of beer and he caught it in his hand as he was running off celebrating and started drinking it. And that was another sort of legendary moment of someone who really resonates with the fans that they love. They actually spoke about Elfsborg fans after that, Steve, saying they're going to have a tribute day to Johan Larsson because he is a legend. And that's kind of the point. He hasn't sort of thrown the toys. He hasn't demanded a transfer request because, like you say, he could play at a decent level. There's a lot of teams he can get into. Wonderful moment.
A bad game, obviously, for Göteborg to blow that lead. But it's generally been a decent period for EFK. 7th place now for them. They're full of goals. It seems like maybe the effect that this manager wanted to have at the club has finally happened. But they've got a lot of goals in them. There's one particular player that you want to talk about here who's been spearheading EFK Göteborg's. I mean, normally, by now, I'm starting to moan, aren't I, about being in a relegation battle. For once, it's safe mid-table, nothing to worry about, looking upwards rather than downwards.
But we haven't spoken about that much this season, and all the turmoil they've had over recent years, they've obviously always been deserved to talk about because they're a bit like, you could argue, the Manchester United of Sweden, really, in terms of former great has fallen on tough times and really a bit of a shambles. Just about avoided relegation playoff last season, didn't they, by the skin of their teeth on the last day of the season with results going their way. Otherwise, they'd have been in a relegation playoff. So, things have sort of not been good for them. This season, actually, have been consolidation. They have changed things behind the scenes. I've mentioned on previous episodes that, I did do a bit of consultancy work during my master's for the former people in charge. So there has been major changes, of course, which is well documented. And things have kind of picked up a little bit. The manager's still there, but obviously behind the scenes, sporting director, things like that. They've got a new sporting director, new people running the club. In various boardroom positions, and they're sort of mid-table, 7th in the league at this moment in time. They're still not the best club in Gothenburg because Gais are having a brilliant season, but they're above Häcken. They've got a chance to maybe finish above them for the first time. Well, they've rarely finished above them in the last 5 years, and things are sort of looking all right. They're kind of at the moment quite a team where it's either win or lose. They've only drawn 1 game actually out of 18. It's either 9 wins and 8 defeats. So they're very much a sort of they either win or lose, and they still haven't lost this habit of conceding late goals. They've lost a lot of those games kind of like late on, a bit like the Elfsborg game where they were, they concede 2 in the last in stoppage time. But I think we do have to sort of touch on, and I won't go into too much detail now, but I think Max Wenger has been a brilliant signing for them. I think he's been probably key to you being one of the reasons that you're comfortably ahead of me in fantasy at the moment, which is to my frustration. Because he just keeps scoring goals, and I keep thinking he's going to get bought by someone, and he doesn't. So I can't believe no one signed him. I had a few question marks about him early in the season, but I've recently revised my opinion on him. I think he's a top player at this level, actually, at Allsvenskan level. I think he's better than some of the strikers that are linked with big moves. I think his instincts in the box are really good. I think to look at his goal against Degerfors at the weekend, Steve, they had a comfortable win against Degerfors, and he's just very good. He's a poacher in the box. He gets shots off. He's got a good shot volume, and he gets good shots off as well. he's got good shooting accuracy. I'm really surprised no one signed him yet, and I think he's been essential to it. Tobias Heinz has had a good season as well. They signed Alioune from Hammarby, who's I think Jesper Johnson is their former sporting director of Hammarby, so he's obviously got the contacts there and brought him in. He's looked okay. Clemenson's done quite well. Yeah, EFCO are looking on the up at the moment.
Yeah, and 3 teams from Gothenburg in the top 10 all greet atop of Super 8, and we could have 4 teams from Gothenburg in the Allsvenskan next season. That'd be spicy. Elsewhere, loads of goals, Geist, like you said, another team with a good striker. We talked about Diabate last time. Kind of surprised he's still in the league. Maybe he'll get transferred before the end of August. But it's been a really interesting period of times. What do you put the rise in goals down to? And I've got another point of the topic of interest on the list here as just listed as Sirius. I've seen they're struggling down there. I know they've got one very, very good player, but really lacking victories. IK Sirius.
Yeah, I mean, I know you tweeted me in recent weeks about saying that there may be the famous, we should probably put it on YouTube, the famous Sirius rant that I had a few seasons ago might be coming back. I don't have the same anger towards Sirius really as I did a few seasons ago, just a bit of bafflement. I was actually going to tweet this during their most recent game when they played Oster, Steve. That was even a bit of a relegation 6-pointer almost, you could say, which kind of caught me by surprise, because what I was thinking, Steve, is what really, they drew 1-1 with Osters, but really what are Sirius doing? Because they sacked their previous manager, Christian Mattsson, and he had a good season. Like he did well last season, and I'm a little bit baffled as to what's gone on there, because he finished 9th. He had an okay season. They played some good attacking football. Okay, it's not the best position in the world, but Sirius, that's not a bad achievement. I thought they were quite a well organised, good structured team. They had a lot of games where they conceded goals late and things like that, and just didn't quite get the rub of the green on a lot of occasions. But it was a bit weird towards the end of the season. He said he wanted a new contract. Then suddenly they didn't want to give him a new contract. He came out publicly about saying, I'm going to be sacked, before he was even sacked. And then he eventually was sacked. So I don't really get what happened behind the scenes there, Steve. They've brought in his replacement, obviously, who was has been at Bremer Poikina, amongst other places. And it's not really worked out, to be honest, at this moment. It's Andreas Engelmark. I think he was part of the coaching team at Bremer Poikina with Sean Constable back in the day, Steve. And I went out to visit both of them in Gothenburg, in Stockholm, at Bremer Poikina a few seasons ago when we had that exclusive interview with Sean out there. But yeah, they've just sort of fallen off a bit of a cliff, Sirius, at the moment. And I think they're in genuine relegation trouble. You look at the league table, there's 3 teams, Sirius, Osters and Degerfors, all on 14 points, 15th, 14th, 13th. And I don't think Sirius are out of it, to be honest, but they've got some quite good players. Leo Walter is another one where I can't understand how he's not been bought by anybody yet. He's clearly their most sort of valuable player at this moment in time. But yeah, I'm a bit confused as to, it looks like a lot of the fans are not happy with the management there. I feel like there's maybe problems getting the best out of some of the players. Like Joachim Persson, I've always liked him. He's just not been in the team at all. He's been in and out of the side. Sirius this season seems to have dulled a lot of their best players from last season, and I just don't really understand what's happening there. And they're kind of almost sleepwalking into a relegation battle.
They might be lucky that there's some very, very poor teams down there. I'm just going to finish this episode. We might make this a regular thing now. I'm going to call it Clown of the Week section, right?
Come on.
Clown of the Week, right? And this involves the IFK Gothenburg Degerfors match on Monday. IFK won it 3-0. But Mamadou Diaby for Degerfors, right, got sent off after 4 minutes. And it wasn't a direct red, it was 2 yellow cards, right? So he stupidly gets his foot in early on away from home at Gamma after 2 minutes, and he's in the book. On what planet does he think he should be going anywhere near a dangerous tackle just 2 minutes later? I have no idea. The referee has no other option but to give him two yellow cards in 4 minutes for actual tackles, not even dissent or something stupid. Proper, and he was fuming. He had to be restrained. He was like a lion going down the tunnel. He was furious. But for me, Sorry, Mamadou. And it's no, I don't want to be derogatory here, but clown of the week for me, Mamadou Diaby for Degerfors against IFK Gothenburg. And Degerfors are going to be a big rant of yours at some point. I know they are going to be, Jonathan, in future episodes.
Yeah, they're poor. I mean, I don't know if this clown of the week thing will last. We can, we'll see about that. But Varnum are a poor side as well. They're rock bottom. They did actually get a win eventually, so they've done better than Haugesund. And they've managed to score 12 goals. But yeah, I mean, sorry, 17 goals, but they've lost 12 games. But yeah, I mean, even just looking at this table, Steve, even Halmstad, who aren't having a great season, they're 12th in the league, but they've scored 15 goals. Steve, how can you? I'm sorry to go back to Haugesund, but how can you score 5 goals in 17 professional matches?
Well, it's beyond belief.
Even teams that are like defensive can't. Like, that has baffled me really. I mean, clown of the week has got to be the entire organisation, surely.
Clown. Yeah, I mean, they're beyond a clown, aren't they? I mean, this is.
But no, Degerfors. They've got a Henrik Goitom who's been announced as the manager there, former Oikor legend. He's not really managed to get too much of a tune out of them, really. They're a poor side. Like you said, I think there's 4 poor sides in this league, to be honest. And when you look at Halmstad being in 12th, I don't even really think they've done that much. But fair play to Halmstad, though. We should say they got a good draw at Djurgården this weekend. So, maybe they're bucking up their ideas a little bit. But, Osters are really, really trying as well. They're not really a gifted side, newly promoted. We've obviously got Martin Foyst in there, the Englishman. But they're doing their best, and they've given themselves a chance of maybe getting out of it. So that they're giving themselves a fighting chance. But I have to say, the quality of the league this season, there are some teams that have. Just to wrap up, Steve, what I would say, I found it quite hard to predict this season. To be honest, there's a lot of teams that I just don't really rate. You look at Häcken in 10th, I just don't really rate them. Norrköping, I mean, Djurgården, I'm not convinced. They're in 8th place, but look at that Halmstad game. Couldn't even score more than 1 goal against Halmstad, and that was an lucky own goal. Like, the only team I could really, even Malmö, I'm just not convinced. The only team I can really say that I've really enjoyed watching this season, besides Mjällby and Hammarby who are going for the title, is Gais. They're the only team that I've looked at this season and gone, yeah, you are an organised side. You're good in possession. You're good out of possession. You know what you're doing. I can see a plan. Everyone else, it's like, even Bromma Poikina, they have some good results. Like this weekend just gone, Steve. Bromma Poikina had a 6-4 game against Norrköping. Unbelievable results-wise. But as Jose Mourinho used to say, if you've got more than a 5-4 game, then as far as he's concerned, it's a disgrace. It's a basketball game. And it's like a bit like that, Bromma Poikina on their day, they're fantastic, but you never know what day is going to be their day. It's like teams are very hard to predict this season, in my opinion. And from a fantasy point of view, I think I've struggled because I just can't. There's a lot of teams I just can't read. And yeah, I have to just give a bit of a shout out to Gais because, in my opinion, they're a team there's not too many teams, I'd say, this season, Steve, where you can look at the structure of the team and go, yeah, I know what they're trying to do here. I can see coaching and I can see the impact of the management and I can see the impact of the players. A lot of the other teams are a bit kind of just wishy-washy for me this season. So let's hope that some of the other teams buck up their ideas because at the moment it's a race to the bottom in terms of relegation. There's 4 or 5 teams who could easily go down.
That was quite a sad little segment, that.
No, I'm praising Gais.
No, not with the Gais bit, but it just felt a little bit disappointing. Your slight disappointment at the league, that Degerfors thing, Henrik Goitom, the manager. I was watching him on Monday, and I think just the way he was seeing his players, I think he was kind of looking at about where's the professionalism here, sort of thing. He's kind of quizzical about, like, he's not used to that, and what can he do?
Do you know what it is? It's not. I'm not being negative, but I think it's just a case of like. I think maybe this is a theory that's in the back of my mind that we'll see how this plays out. But I'm starting to wonder a little bit. You used to be quite down on Eliteserien. I'm wondering if at the moment the impact of like the increased finances in Allsvenskan, teams buying all these players, I'm just wondering if it's starting to decrease the quality of the league a little bit in terms of overall quality. Because there's too many players. There's too many players just leaving quite quickly. So then it means that those sort of teams like. Like a Sirius, like a Degerfors. Like you look at, even look at Osters, Steve. They sold one of their best players to Slavia Prague within like about 5 minutes. to the Czech Republic anyway, one of the Prague teams. Do you get what I'm sort of trying to say? The teams that, when you look down that league, I mean, I'm surprised Agnero at Halmstad hasn't been bought yet. It just feels a bit like kind of a lot of the teams that there's nothing really that exciting and you can't really rely on them as well. I don't know if it's a management thing. There's younger managers now. Martin Falk at Norrköping, I think he's in his late 20s. So maybe it's that sort of thing as well, just going for trending towards younger managers and less experience. But or maybe it's just a one-off season. But my point really, it's more about me really. Maybe there's different theories, but my point this season is I found it a little bit hard to read some of these teams, and I don't really. Maybe that's because the bigger teams aren't doing that well. But don't get me wrong. Just to end it on a positive note, I'm really enjoying the season from the point of view of, I think Mjällby, Hammarby. Like I say, guys, there's still some good teams at Elfsborg I enjoy watching. There's been some fantastic storylines like Johan Larsson. I think EFK Göteborg have been better. So it's not all negativity, but I'm finding it hard to predict this season, Steve. I think you're having a lot more luck than me predicting it because your fantasy team is doing pretty well.
I like the league. I've got a good read on most of the teams, actually. There's not many. The only teams that I don't really get much of a read on is Bromma Poiken, probably the team I can never get right, ever. But apart from them...
What's your theory then? If you've cracked it, what's your theory?
Well, I tend to be really good when there's a lot of good teams in the league and there's a lot of bad teams in the league. And I think that's what's happened this year. The bottom six are crap and the top six are quite good. And then in the middle, there's not much. Actually, Djurgården are a team that are really on the rise. I think I'd rate them high. I think they're going to be, you don't want to be facing them the last 10. But yeah, I think there's a big sort of gulf between bottom and top a little bit. I think you mentioned it, didn't you, earlier? That's how I see it a bit. There are some really poor teams down at the bottom. I love it when there's bad teams because leagues are much easier to... Last year, Norway was horrendous for that because there wasn't genuinely anyone that bad. So anyway, let us know what you think. Put some comments in on YouTube, on X, follow us on the socials, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time again soon on the Nordic Football Podcast. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah, and just one thing before we go in terms of, like you said, leaving comments. I just want to give a big shout out to a listener who recently emailed us, Ken Gall. I hope you don't mind us. I think you did give permission for us to give you a shout out. He said, "Hi there, I'm a keen listener to the pod and have been for a while now. I just got back from a flying visit to Gothenburg, 3 games in, 2 days. EFK Elfsborg, Geisby Hammarby and Häcken Halmstad. I thought you might be interested in some of my observations. First, the fan culture in Sweden is as good as any in Europe. I've been to football in about 15 European countries, and the atmosphere noise, particularly at Gais Hammarby on Sunday, was only second to Legia Warsaw, which was unbelievable. Secondly, and Steve, you'll like this, EFK have the best club song in the history of football. But you knew that anyway. Thirdly, quality of games was generally good, Gais' performance being the pick of them all, which pretty much sums up what I just said. Buji was brilliant for them and sadly will surely be sold soon. Fourthly, Hammarby will not win the league. Shame, as their fans were superb. Finally, thanks for the pod, which partly inspired me to go and catch some Allsvenskan. I will be returning. So there you go, Steve. We are changing people. We are getting people out to Sweden. I think the Swedish Tourist Board owes us a bit of...
I need to get out there. I said it. I keep meaning to go out there. I don't know when I'm going to go. I will go out there to watch some games and tour myself. I don't know where, but yeah, thanks very much for that insight and great comment.
But one thing I'd say, Steve, Ken Gall, we do love, and then obviously people obviously tweet us a lot on Twitter as well, at Nordic Foot Pod. A lot of people support the Patreon, patreon.com/Nordic Football Podcast. A lot of you on the Patreon, you do it mainly out of love and it's just support. So we really need to give you a big shout out for all your support. But just to reiterate, we do love to hear from listeners. If you give your observations, we don't mind criticism if you've got a fair point. Don't just insult us for no reason. But if you don't agree with us at times, like the famous listener at Tromso who didn't quite agree with Steve, we love to hear from it. So yeah, that is a great email, and we're more than happy to hear from listeners. And if you ever need advice in terms of games or places to visit, then yeah, we're always happy to try and help.
Well, I say thank you, everyone. We will see you next time on the podcast. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.